I've spent about the last year doing vigorous, extensive research into what it's like to play Mordekaiser. In short, Mordekaiser in design is both Iron and Raidboss Incarnate. I do mean everything, from champ design, to lore, to sound design, and rather remarkably, even to how he's fought. Oh no. He's not exactly a very subtle champion. Mordekaiser isn't hiding the fact that he is the villain, and without a doubt is probably the single most evil and quite possibly dangerous champion in Runeterra's entire roster. It's not exactly hard to tell either. With someone like Azir, there's a little bit of moral complexity in there, in his backstory and his lore, and you can make decent arguments for him either way. But Mordekaiser? Look at him! Good people don't look or sound like this.
I promise. Neither city.
Hell, good people don't laugh when they die. Incidentally, this is the precise reason you should never ever use Darkstar Mordekaiser. It replaces the voice filter on his voice lines and ends up making him sound like an old white senator from New York and not the evilest motherfucker yet spawned.
My will is once again bound to iron. My will is once again bound to iron.
His lore goes to show that Mordekaiser doesn't play around, and as does the way that it's written. He conquered a good part of the world twice, persisted through death out of pure anger, formed a kingdom in hell, tortured Vhagar the wily bastard, planned on being betrayed by my permaban, and is currently looking to go round 3 on conquering the entire world. What's his reason for doing so? Not established, not relevant. He just wants to conquer the world for clout and to expand his empire of souls. I mean, for God's sake, he changed his name to Mordekaiser, which literally means Death King. In gameplay, Mordekaiser is a juggernaut, a type of champion with little to no mobility, but able to both deal damage and tank. His 3 main abilities are nothing too special, with a large source of damage, a shield, and a pull, but once again they're designed in pretty much the perfect way to be analogous to a giant final boss. If you let him use his super telegraphed combo on you, you die. If you overextend in lane, you get microwaved and you die. If you gank him, you die. If you didn't buy QSS, you die. If you're an ADC, you die. If you misjudge how close Mordekaiser is to death and chase, he can use his next boss phase button and you die.
Oh my god! It's an ethics violation!
So how do you win against Mordekaiser? Well, the secret is to CC him. In a team fight, if Mord gets hit by all the CC in the world, the chance of him surviving is pretty low. Pretty low. Mordekaiser might be the king of 1v1s, but when teamed up against he's pretty fucked, which once again reinforces that teamwork is needed to beat the boss. He's certainly a long way away from Viego's raw escape power, God forbid Azir's. When Zed is in the game and can jump around the entire map at ridiculous speeds, it might seem questionable why you'd ever give that up. But when you ascend and finally do embrace walkin', it can be pretty great. When Mordekaiser gets going, it can, rather fittingly considering new Steam releases, turn into a train wreck so extreme it's rivaled by only a few champions. There's this excellent short by this Korean channel, which I'll link in the description, and highly recommend watching. This video showed me just how good Mordekaiser's sound design is. The way Mordekaiser signals to his opponents that he's about to go into his next phase by 2 exceptionally loud crashes into his armor is incredible, and terrifying in the moment. I'm pretty sure I've also given people PTSD from the ult noise alone. Speaking of which, Mordekaiser's ult might be one of the funniest things in the entire game, especially when he's in the jungle. Flash ulting into one of your lanes to steal their lane opponent and disappear into literal hell is hilarious. Depending on skin, the Brazils available to you are Hell, Purple Hell, Literal Hell, I Divine Cybermancy, a Concert, which is much worse than Hell if you ask me, and lastly, at time of writing, Train World. A guilty pleasure I have to admit is that, well, I don't need to ult people a significant portion of the time, but watching them panic as a suit of iron lumbers towards them and they can't run away is really funny. It's even better afterwards when you end up pair-dropping in the middle of the enemy team to kill all of the survivors. Even when this doesn't happen though, and you're just ulting to torture a Katarina, god is it satisfying. Like, what exactly is Lux meant to do when Mordekaiser jumps onto her and promptly annihilates all of her health bar? Just shouldn't have been out of position, really. Speaking of being out of position, you may have noticed the vast majority of this footage features me playing Mordekaiser mid. That's not just because I don't want to play top lane, it's because I despise top lane. You will consistently get opponents who don't realize that you can kill them with a thought, or those that had the audacity to back onto their own towers. God, imagine. The amount of times people haven't expected me to kindly escort them back to their own tower while cooking them like ravioli in between violent mace swings is rather surprising. At level 3, Mordekaiser gets a huge amount of poke with his E-Q auto combo, and it can easily lead to kills in the early game. Generally, you end up continually fishing for it, and if it hits, bye-bye, Lucian.
She's really aggressively wasting my time right now.
A huge part of mid lane is roaming, something made significantly more difficult by the complete and utter lack of mobility.
I have decided that those like leg wrappings end above the knee because the boots go up to like the thigh. Mordekaiser is wearing shorts, and you can't do anything about that.
In my experience, though, this has been offset by two things. Enemy junglers walking into your lane to ever graciously gift you with a free kill, and being able to shove the wave constantly. The former is pretty self-explanatory. Get visited by a spider and then promptly destroy it. But Mordekaiser is very adept at controlling the wave. You can either take the entire thing in the span of about 2 key presses in 1 second, or you can sit there and stare at your lane opponent. If you can manage to get ahead of your lane opponent early on, their laning phase is miserable. Chug! Your best hope against, certain ranged champs is prayer, though. All you can really do is hope that they get overconfident and allow themselves to get grasped into hell. If this does happen, you can get ahead. In some matchups, you can pretty much ignore them for the rest of the game. If you do decide to shove the wave, I am a big fan of invading the enemy jungle for extra CS and killing whoever is unfortunate enough to be there. When it's time for objectives, Mordekaiser is the primo jungle aid. Winning smite trades is a lot easier when the enemy jungler is deep in the recesses of another dimension fighting Iron Sauron. If you are the jungler, the order of operations changes only very minorly. Murder the enemy jungler in hell before the drag fight instead of during.
Are any of these Shakos in the room with us right now?
I always go Ignite every game. The reasoning is twofold. It's funny, and it's liable to get your steamroll going a lot faster. Mordekaiser mid does have a lot of issues securing kills thanks to the aforementioned low mobility. Ignite makes it a lot easier, which is super important for ensuring that you can take the momentum in lane and thus the game. Junglers will consistently, overconfidently run into your lane, get hit by an ult Ignite, and then promptly shit themselves as their entire health bar disappears. Seriously, just watch the Hecarims panic. Ugh, gets me every time. A classic Mordekaiser maneuver is to be a bush bandit and bait people into chasing you. Especially in situations like this, people expect you to turn tail and run, and if you just turn midway through a fair amount of kiting and fighting later, you're pretty likely to come out the other end 3 kills up and drenched in blood, with barely any of it being your own. Vision cheesing people is pretty important. A mistake I'm pretty prone to making, and I've seen plenty of other Mordekaisers make, is using W way too early. If you're relatively high health and a fight breaks out, do not under any circumstances press that thing until your next phase bar is fully juiced. In laning phase, it's pretty much the ultimate make your enemy laner not have any fun button. Ahri lands her entire combo and it does literally nothing. Minions do more damage. Giving an overview for how to play Mordekaiser is surprisingly hard because of just how matchup dependent it is. If you're lucky and you get to lane into someone like a Zed or a Nocturne, the general dynamic in champ select in lane goes something like this.
Haha, I'm a burst assassin, I'm gonna take him to the mid lane.
Iron stands eternal.
But if you're into one of the aforementioned ranged champs, instead the dynamic is exactly what it's like for most of the people you lane into, waiting to get to play the game for 20 minutes while crying. Some of the only universal advice I can give is to queue your jungler's buff before the game starts. After laning phase is over, you tend to find yourself playing as a second jungler who is exceptionally greedy for any and all CS, but that might just be me. Oh, did he use an orange? Did you use an orange? That's right, secretly this video is about Mord jungle all along. And I bet you fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Whatever lane you find yourself in, whether it be mid, jungle, ADC, or god forbid top lane, go get comfy with Mordekaiser's toolset. Learning what it's like to truly be the raid boss is very worth it.
What is happening?
I didn't hop on. Oh no,
that is
the mortal. Kelsey's ult didn't kill you. We do a little bit of trolling. Nice.
You win those?
Mordekaiser.
You actually win those? Ping, 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 ping. Get your W.
What the fuck?
All shall serve the true Lord of the living and the